Well, the super speedway is the big one, especially with the way the rent has gone up now. We've got a pretty big nut to cover when we do one at the super speedway.
Yeah.
And when I first started renting the super speedway in 2010, I could rent that whole place for $2,500.
Is that with like the garage bays and everything included?
But it was closed at the time.
So they were just making money, just sitting.
Yeah.
It's a lot nicer now.
So what is it now?
So now it's $7,500. And it's going up. It's going to be $10,000 next year.
Jesus Christ.
Y'all don't be mad at me if it costs a little more to drive at the super speedway next year. That year, I found, golly, think about this. I found a running, driving S13 coupe in a guy's barn and bought it for $400. And it was running and driving. And
That's because of you,
baby.
That's because of you, motherfuckers.
That's right. It's all your fault that we
anymore.
can't do that anymore. So I built my first drift car with some help with some friends. And I was looking for a place to learn how to do it. And I was out to dinner with my wife. We're driving my truck wrapped, and this kid pulls up beside me and says, "Hey man, you ever do wraps on a drift car?" And I was like, "No." And he goes, "Well, I got one." I said, "You got a drift car?" And all of a sudden I was like, "You're not my new best friend. We need to talk."
Yeah. Who was it?
And I was like, it was Jeremy Scherer. Do y'all remember Jeremy Scherer?
That name sounds familiar.
Like, he got out probably in 2009 or so, and he went down the road of like vintage race motorcycles and stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Pretty cool little cat,
Yeah.
And he's got a family now, and he messes with those things still. He was a really good little driver, though.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't for him once we got it really rolling good. But gosh, we got to talking about it, and I was like, "Well, where do we have to go to do this?" And he goes, "Golly, we got to go to Atlanta, or we got to go to Myrtle Beach, or we got to." And I was like, "Really?" Well, at the time,
Myrtle Beach.
I was kind of sort of the official graphics guy for the Fairgrounds racetrack, right? So I called.
You're the in.
I called the promoter and I said, "Hey, like one weekend, could I maybe rent a track from you on a Sunday and have a little drift event?" And he's like, "What's drifting?" I don't know. I'm learning this as I go here, man. So he says, "Well, you'll have to provide insurance." And I'm like, "Where do I go to get it? I don't know anything about this." So we figured out how to go to K&K Insurance and get insurance for an event. And I hosted my first event in September of 2009. And that was the first official drift event here in the Nashville area. There'd been like some private days.
Sure.
The guys out at the super speedway, them old guys that were, golly, I can't remember any of their names now. It's been a while, but they were, there were some private days going at the super speedway, and there were some going out in that big parking lot out there that they've got in front of the media center.
Yeah.
And they'd been doing that some, but nothing really steady, So we did 4. We did September, October, November, and December in 2009. We did 4 events. And back then it was all forums, you had to put something out on a forum to get any attention to it. And, man, we put it out on 10 speed and we put it out on 240 Atlanta and all of those. We probably had 50 cars at that first event. People came from 9 different states. We couldn't believe it. It blew our minds. We couldn't believe it. People were starving for it,
Yeah.
So that was kind of
just another track.
That was kind of how Tennessee Drift was born,
So so this was like my question is for the insurance, is it like a bunch of hoops? Because if you talk to track people who run events, they make it sound like
they always sound stressed the fuck out.
Yeah. Is it really like that? Or once you kind of know the hoops, you can walk an insurance agent through it? Or
Well, I've been doing it so long now, and I've been using the same guy for so long.
You got a plug.
Now
like the first time, was it like, no, we can't do that? So
it was a little tough. You had to be a little vague with him what you were doing. You had to be kind of like, we're going to do some drifting in a parking lot. Well, what do you mean by that? Well, we're just going to have a couple of cars out there sliding around. Nothing major.
Not 60.
Is there like barriers to protect from? Well, yeah, we got some,
concrete pylons,
police tape, and some cattle gate or whatever. It wasn't
some
much.
barbed wire.
There's a chain link fence, sort of, kind of.
That's awesome.
So you kind of gotta not tell them that you're everything that you're doing. You can get a little too specific for the insurance guys.
Has that kind of changed over time, though?
Well, it has.
Now that he knows.
Now that we've done 60 plus events and never had the first incident, they don't even ask. They say, they make me do a little aerial map, and this is where the fence will be, and this is where the spectators will be, and this is where the cars will be, and it's easy to get a certificate anymore.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah.
But to make it easier on us, we don't insure one event. We buy a policy that's good for 6 or 8, and we pay up front.
Okay.
So we will spend, $5,000 right out of the gate in January, but that's good for the first 6 events or so.
Oh, wow.
So,
and it doesn't matter like where they're located?
Well, it does a little bit because the super speedway has different requirements than the fairgrounds, than Beach Bend, than a parking lot, say over in Sevierville. The super speedway makes us carry $5 million aggregate coverage.
So do you have to have the schedule like completely lined up for that then?
Pretty close.
Because that's some crazy shit.
Damn, so if you throw one, you're really throwing. Like if you have to toss one out, you're like, oh, fuck.
Mm-hmm. It can get a little scary.
Yeah. That's pretty tough. I was curious about that, how big a risk it was.
What's the most risky one you've had to jump into?
Well, the super speedway is the big one, because especially with the way the rent has gone up now, we've got a pretty big nut to cover when we do one at the super speedway.
Yeah.
What did it used to be compared to now?
Dude, when I first started renting the super speedway in 2010, I could rent that whole place for $2,500.
Is that with like the garage bays and everything included?
Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah,
dude.
but it was closed at the time. See,
yeah, that's
it wasn't
true.
open.
So they were just making money, just sitting.
Yeah,
It's a lot nicer now.
So what is it now?
So now
$5,000?
it's $7,500, and it's going up. It's going to be $10,000 next year.
Jesus Christ.
So y'all don't be mad at me if it costs a little more to drive at the super speedway next year. But that's why we've had to do these double events here lately with the autocross guys too, because we got to have 100 cars.
Yeah, to cover the cover the money.
Yeah.
Damn.
It's that expensive to do an event.
Well, I wanted to bring up some of your cars and stuff because even since we've both known you, you've been through. Well, even besides, you've got a shit ton of these. We just went in
These
the
are
back
awesome.
and saw
You need to
all
do
those.
some B-roll.
But
I know.
yeah,
right?
we can take some
Back
B-roll
there in my
after the
garage.
episode. But,
yeah.
It was funny the other day. Ricky was walking along and he goes, "Have you stopped to think about how many remote control cars you have?" And I went and I started making a count, and I think the count's around 30.
God damn.
okay, that's not as bad as I expected,
Because it's
honestly.
these.
Oh, really?
It's
I was going to
those,
expect like
it's-
50.
It's stuff at the house. It's oh my gosh, yeah. I'm deep into that.
Well, besides those, what you've been through several cars since we've known you. Give us a rundown on like your past few cars.
So my very first car was that 13 coupe I was telling you about, and I almost had it running. And a good friend of mine, Brent, down in Atlanta, decided he had to have it. And so he had found me a 14, and I wanted a 14 anyway because they're a bigger car. I'm a bigger guy, a little more
they're
room in
cooler
that,
too, I think.
So
And I'm an S13 guy. I think Cookie S14s are just.
So he found
That's the
me
money.
he found me that 14. And it was a Zinky, and we started building that one. And he like took my car and put his motor in it and was driving. And I was like, man, it took me another year, to have a car on the track. But that car is the car that affectionately became known as the Bunny because I had a Warner Brothers camo wrap on it when we first put it together, and it had a big Bugs Bunny head on the roof and everything, or on the hood, and I even wrapped my helmet as Bugs Bunny with the ears going up across the top of it and all that stuff.
Wrapping the fucking helmet.
Yeah.
I'm such an idiot
I
sometimes.
ought to lay it up here.
God.
I'll run get it if we take a break. It's over there in that shelf. But
No, I just realized that you could wrap a helmet. And so I was like, I need to wrap my helmet to match my car.
it sucks.
Like,
but
I'm an
you can-
idiot.
You
know?
can do it. I've done a bunch of them.
I should have just brought it in.
Yeah.
I could have got my mark to pay
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah, right.
I'm an idiot, dude. Fuck.
Could have just put it in with the deal.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Fuck. So stupid. Yeah, so
that
stupid.
that car stayed with me for 3 or 4 years, 4 or 5 years actually.
What was the setup on that car?
It was, man, it kind of evolved, when we first built it. I never learned how to drift in a 4-cylinder car. I
Me
was
either.
already racing, so
Yep.
I was already used to the power.
Same here.
So we just put a regular old 5.7 in it. And that was before there were kits, so we made everything. We notched the
yeah.
cross member. We put the GTO oil pan
Notch
in
the
it.
notch the cross member?
Yeah, yeah. You used to cut it for clearance, and you cut the piece out at the top, flip it upside down, weld it back in, so you had a dip instead of a top like that.
That's cool.
And then the oil pan literally
Monkey
set in
shit.
that hole. Yeah,
With not a truck pan, but a car pan
a
over there.
GTO pan. front sump.
Damn,
And
he's dropping some fucking old school knowledge on
we
y'all,
had to
son.
we had to